Today's topic is extended metaphor. Extended metaphor is basically a derivation of regular metaphor. Metaphor is a figure of speech in which a term or phrase is applied to something which is not literally applicable in order to suggest a resemblance. For instance, the house is a tomb. Doesn't mean the house really is a tomb. It may feel like a tomb, but it really is not that. Metaphor can be implicit, implied, or hidden. Some metaphors are harder to find than others. An extended metaphor, however, is where the author uses a metaphor and further develops it at length through multiple vehicles, tenors, and grounds through the length of a poem. For instance, the house is a tomb would be a perfectly fine metaphor, but if the author keeps on going at it and keeps on describing the tomb and really takes you there, pretty soon you forget that you're talking about a house. The metaphor has been extended to such a point where house or tomb, it doesn't matter. What matters is the feeling behind it. So, for instance, if we take extended metaphor on its own and we apply it to something like a box, we can see how a poet does it. So, for instance, the idea of carrying a box can become a metaphor, even though it is just an image. In this poem, it goes like this. He manages like someone carrying a box that is too heavy. First with his arms underneath. When their strength gives out, he moves the hands forward, hooking them on the corners, pulling the weight against his chest. He moves his thumbs slightly when the fingers begin to tire, and it makes different muscles take over. Afterward, he carries it on his shoulder until the blood drains out of the arm, which is stretched up to steady the box, and the arm goes numb. But now the man can hold underneath again, so that he can go on without ever putting the box down. Here the idea of carrying a box becomes extremely significant because the metaphor is being drawn to its fullest extent. It's not just a man carrying a box. He is carrying a box that is too heavy, and then he does everything in his will to keep it off the ground. Until the end of the poem, he can go on without ever putting the box down. Now, with the idea of metaphor, you can change the idea of the box into something else, because the poem is not titled Carrying a Box. In fact, the poem is titled Michiko Dead by Gilbert. If you do biographical research on Gilbert, you'll realize that Michiko was his wife who had passed away. Titling the poem Michiko Dead creates great juxtaposition between the poem title and the actual poem itself, which is about carrying a box. Now, with the title, I'm sure that you can come up with some really good conclusions on how this metaphor can work. Michiko dead, a person dying, the significance of mourning, seeing them pass away, and all of a sudden you're carrying a box that is too heavy, first with your arms until they give out, and then you put it on your shoulder until the blood drains out of the arm and the arm goes numb, but now you can hold it underneath again, never letting the box down, never letting the death down, or casket, or just the mourning fact that you lost someone significant. The metaphor becomes a lot more than just a box.